them. So let's begin. So first off, let me emphasize that elixirs are the absolute most efficient power-up in this game currently. Once you have elixirs done, so say you finished your 40 set, at minimum, you're looking at a 15% damage increase on DPSs, and it can scale up to something like 30% in extreme situations. So like say you're on eye level, because elixirs tend to be more efficient in terms of power up when you're on eye level as compared to like being max eye level and all. So something between 15 to 30% damage increase. Generally, if you have elixirs decently done, you'll be seeing something like a 24%-ish damage increase. Now to put that in perspective though, you're gaining something between 1 to 2 extra lines of engravings. So it's a lot. On supports, it's kind of less interesting in a sense. Once you have 40 set done, you'll be giving 2% to each of your DPSs in your party, and it can scale up to 4% with good elixirs. It doesn't look too interesting, but bear in mind that it applies to each DPS, so it adds up in a sense. Elixirs is a system that is a bit more geared towards DPSs in terms of power upgrades. If you look at Transcendence, it's kind of the opposite. The benefits that supports get are larger, considering that the ways to increase the damage for DPSs from the support side, it's very limited. So elixirs is one of the few ways through which you can increase the efficiency of the power-ups that you provide as support. Now, the cost of doing elixirs is estimated to be something around between 300k and 600k gold. Now, it's a lot, but if you consider that you're getting something between 15% to 30% damage increase, and considering that, from what I hear in global, the cost of a level 10 gem is around 500k. You're spending 500k, so one level 10 damage gem worth of cost to get at least one damage engraving line worth of power up. You could see it this way. It's up to 10 times more efficient than buying a level 10 gem. So it's huge. And generally people finish their 40 sets between 1 to 2 months, and then it will take more if you choose to invest more in elixirs to like make them better. Assume that you're gonna spend at least 300k gold and at least 1 month obtaining 40 sets. Oh, there's a lot of variance. There's a whole lot of variance when it comes to this. Some people finish their 40 set or reach 40 set in like 1 week or 2. Some, like I have a friend who actually had to spend 5 months to complete their 40 set. Just getting 40 set cost 5 months and like probably upwards of millions of gold. So there's a lot of variance. So this is like really just a wild guess in terms of the cost and time that it's going to take. Now, looking at purple elixirs. So I know that the West has been talking about purple elixirs and belittling them for being a waste, useless, and that is very not the case. So if you're a 1600 character and you do Voldis normal, you'll get those purple elixirs, right? And generally, if you spend something like 20k, 30k, you'll be able to get elixirs done on your 5 pieces. You will generally not have reached set bonus, which starts at 35. But the amount of damage you can easily get something between 5 to 6% in terms of power up from purple elixirs, and the cost is something under 30k. And you can, of course, there's variance. Think about it this way: 5 to 6% stronger is the equivalent of getting a 9/7 in terms of power up. And considering that a 9/7 costs something upwards of 2 million gold in terms of costs, you're getting a 9/7 stone worth of power up at a discounted rate of around 30k gold. So if you were thinking about not doing purple elixirs because, you're going to replace it anyways when it comes to when you reach 1620 and get legendary elixirs, I don't know what to say. It's such a good deal. Why not take it? And then second, purple elixirs are a very good way to snipe set options in preparation for 40 set. it is very difficult to snipe the set bonus options that you need on your character. And even if you're 1620, you will end up using purple elixirs in order to see more hands. The thing is, even with legendary elixirs, if it's a set option that you see, you will settle even if it's a 5-2. In extreme cases, you'll even settle if it's a 5-1, which is something that's obtainable in terms of purple elixirs. That is a 4-3, 4-2 even on purple elixirs, and that is obtainable. Also, purple elixirs are really cheap compared to legendary elixir, so it doesn't hurt to see more hands and perhaps obtain the set option that you need. If you do it purely on legendary elixir, it's going to take a very long while to reach 40 set, and it is very important in terms of power up to first off reach that 40 set point, and then you work from there, because 40 set unlocks the bulk of the power up when it comes to elixirs. So you start from there, and to get there, purple elixirs are a very good instrument. So whether you're 1600s, you're under 1620, or whether you're above 1620, purple elixirs will be a very good way to reach your goals. Now, in terms of options, this is a spread in terms of probability of what you can get when you're cycling through options, so the pick phase. And I've highlighted the ones in yellow, the ones that tend to be preferred by supports and DPSs. And credit to Icepeng. He's the guy who made the Elixir AI and the Transcendence AI and the gearing aid. He makes a lot of tools for Lost Ark, and credit to him for releasing this information. What you'll notice here is that, first of all, attack power, weapon power, and main stat, those are the common lines that you will want. And they're placed at a lower probability than the other common lines, just so that you know how difficult it is to obtain them compared to the other ones. And then shoulder, pants, and chest pieces, the options that you're seeking are each placed at 1.25%. This is fairly difficult to get. But notice here, 0.56% to snipe for the set options that you need. This is precisely why you will want to use purple elixirs to your benefit in order to snipe at these options, because if you just look at legendary elixirs, barring crafting legendary elixirs from shards, because that's like very expensive, and also assuming that you don't get elixirs from auctions, you only get 6 elixirs per week. And looking at this probability, of course this fluctuates depending on what choices you make. So let's say you choose a chestline piece beforehand, then this 5% is wiped out, which means that this probability will go up. But like, this is the raw baseline of probability that you're looking at. It's very bleak. Just to articulate how difficult it is to get those set bonuses. And this is the reason why it takes a very long while to fill up your elixirs, because these set bonuses are very difficult to get. First of all, you need to get the ones that you need, and then second, you need to get a decent amount of nodes using that set bonus. So you have to go through like layers of difficulties in order to reach that 40 set. Now, to go over options that you want to snipe as a DPS, first of all, common lines, attack power, weapon attack, main stat, with emphasis on attack power. Attack power is the most efficient common line out of the 3. And then it's kind of a toss-up between weapon attack and main stat. Generally, you want to go for main stat, and the reason is DPS tend to focus on honing their weapon, and therefore there's a state of imbalance, which means that main stat, you benefit a bit more from it. But all in all, it's like a very slim difference. So if there is a situation where you have to pick one between the two, try to go for weapon attack. I mean, no, main stat, actually. Main stat. So attack power, main stat, and then weapon attack. But like, it doesn't really matter. It's like whatever between these two. Head and glove. There's 2 sets that are really popular among DPSs, and it's the crit set, the one that increases your crit rate by 7%, and the damage on crit set. I didn't label it as crit damage because that'd be kind of confusing. It's different from crit damage in the sense that it's damage that is conditional on crit and it's calculated separately from crit damage. But yeah, those are the two sets that DPSs tend to take. An honorable mention will be the DPS spacebar one, but theoretically, it's as good as these other two. But the fact that you have to use your spacebar in order to enable the damage is a liability in raids because your spacebar tends to be your lifeline. And so it gets less preferred. It has fallen out of flavor. Initially, some DPS would take it. I still think it's a decent idea on classes like handgunner who use spacebar in their rotations anyways. But yeah, generally try to aim for one of these two. If you look at Loa and look at the top DPS and all, they'll all have one of these two sets. And which set you'll take depends on which class you play, which playstyle you play. Now, looking at shoulder, it's definitely boss damage. It's like a 2.4% damage increase. Chest piece, you can go for a double common line setup for the chests. And you also have the option of going physical damage, physical defense, DR, or max HP. And notice that I've lined them up like this. Physical defense is actually the best way to, out of the three, to make you tankier. It's because most of the damage in this game is physical. And if you look at the amount of physical defense that you get from this option at level 5, it's at 6,000, which is roughly the equivalent of an extra defensive gear piece. So you have one extra defensive gear piece if you have physical defense, which is insane. I've seen that somewhere that it's roughly equivalent to 17% in terms of damage reduction. So 17% is higher than 10% that you get from DR. And then you also have the option of max HP, but I try to get one of these two on DPSs. And common line if you prefer to be more offensive and you care less about the defensive stats. Oh, the slide is cut off a bit. Oh, sorry. Pants, it's crit damage or additional damage. Generally, crit damage will give you more benefits than additional damage, with the exception of a few cases. All in all, though, they're pretty similar, and so you'll take whichever is presented to you. Certain classes that have way too high of crit damage or that have really low crit rates will not benefit as much from having the 7% crit damage. So in those cases, additional damage will be better. Generally, though, if you're like just a regular class, crit damage works better. But yeah, it's like whatever. It's like a few point something percentage difference. In terms of priority, definitely try to aim for that head and glove set piece. Boss damage is the highest form of damage increase apart from the set bonus, and then crit damage or additional damage. And then of course, I forgot to add that here. Common line. So attack, power, weapon, attack, main stat. And generally try to get place emphasis on common lines before anything else, apart from set bonus if you haven't gotten that. Honorable mentions go to Stagger. Stagger always helps in raids. MP regen and mana in case you're one of those mana famished classes. And Potion Addict, out of all the worst options, it's better than things like HP regen. Now, going to support options, one thing to note is that supports don't enjoy any benefits from attack power on the Elixir. It's because the same reason as why Curse Stall and Increased Mass don't affect support buffs. Support buff is calculated based on your base attack power, which is a function that's based on weapon attack and main stat. So precisely those two things that are offered on Elixirs. Those are the only two things that affect support buffs because those influence your base attack power. And attack power is calculated after base attack power. And so it has no effect on support buffs. So Curse Stall, Increased Mass don't work. And like the engraving negative line also does not affect support buffs because of that. Now, looking at head and gloves, you have three options on supports. I've just decided to call them Support Adrenaline, Support Ether, because we don't know what the official names are yet. But yeah, Support Adrenaline stacks up 5 times, and then you get 5% cooldown when you reach max stacks. It kind of functions like Adrenaline. It's a bit more forgiving. Generally, supports will go for Support Adrenaline. because 5% cooldown reduction, especially important on Paladin, because it allows him to reach closer to 100% buff uptime. And it's also preferred on Bard and Artist because it gives them, it allows them to rotate through more skills, which means more gauge, more stagger, and more application of Heavenly Tune and Sunsketch. And then the support ether line, what that thing does is anyone in the party can eat one of the ether balls dropped by the support if they have this set, and basically everyone in the party, their weapon level goes up by +1. If you just look at the amount of damage increase that the party enjoys, then generally support ether will be a better pick than the support adrenaline one, generally, because support ether kind of falls off the more geared the party is. But the trend right now is that support adrenaline is the way. Even on Bard and Artist, who don't really need that 5% extra cooldown, unlike Paladin, they still go for support adrenaline because it gives them more agency. Next is Shoulder. Now on Shoulder, for supports, you have the option of healing efficiency and shield efficiency, but the benefits are kind of meager. And so it's kind of best if you can go for double common line setup because it's hard to snipe for both weapon attack and main stat. It tends to be difficult to do that. That's the ceiling that you can get on support Elixir sets though. In the end, you'll like settle for anything like mana, MP regen, stagger on top of like trying to get a weapon attack or main stat line on Shoulder. I mean, you can still go for healing and shielding efficiency, anything. On supports, generally the obligations on Elixirs tends to be lower because it's not like you get the benefits of the Elixirs anyways. And the amount that support Elixirs influences is kind of low. So getting a full level 5 weapon attack or main stat line increases attack power, like support buff efficiency by like 0.15% from what I've seen. It's not a lot. So it's perfectly fine if you don't manage to get those. It's nice if you do, of course. But anyhow, chess piece, you get something between double common line setup if possible, or you try to get max HP. In this case, max HP influences things like shielding and healing on top of making you tankier. And of course, you can also aim for DR or physical defense. It works. Makes you tankier, but like generally supports are tanky enough, so like getting a double common line setup of weapon attack and main stat works best probably. For pants, this is very important. The buff efficiency line is a 6% extra efficiency on attack buffs. And you'll want to get that over the other option, which is identity gain. Identity gain, it increases the amount of identity you get by, I think it was 4%. But anyways, like identity gain in general, even on bracelets, tends to be low value. You'll have to get buff efficiency. That's it's the only requirement you need on support elixirs apart from your 40 set. Because on DPSs, you also have to aim for boss damage and crit damage and all. But for supports, buff efficiency, getting that level 5 is very important. Prio on supports, headset, out of the head and glove piece. Headset actually increases the efficiency of buffs. I think it's a 4%. The gloves, even if it's left at like, say, level 1, it doesn't matter. Because it only increases the efficiency of shields and heals. But on the headpiece, on supports, there's a 4% buff efficiency attached to it. So you want to get headpiece at level 5 as well on supports. For DPSs, I forgot to mention, for both head and glove piece, you want those at level 5 because there's increased damage dealt to enemies and attack power increase are tied to the set piece itself. So you want that set bonus piece to be at level 5. And then buff efficiency on supports. Honorable mention, stagger always helps on supports, and MP regen and mana. Although like generally, if you have max mana on board, and then if you're taking mana food in general, you won't have any mana issues. This is like a nice bonus. DR and physical defense on chest piece, and healing and shielding efficiency kind of deserve at least an honorable mention. And then of course the support Dominion set. It offers fewer benefits than the other two sets, but still, like, if you are pigeonholed into taking this set, it doesn't hurt. Now, how to navigate through elixirs. It's very difficult to explain, but let me give you a few pointers. Starting with Chaos 6 stacks. So Chaos 6 stack options, you might feel pressured to get Chaos 6 stacks because you might have seen on streams and all how the Sage Burn option tends to be really juicy when it works. But the thing is, Chaos 6 stacks in itself is pretty bad overall. There's no other way to put it. It's pretty bad. So the yellow lines that I've highlighted, those tend to be the ones that people aim for when they're trying to get Chaos 6 stacks. Those are the ones that provide meaningful value upgrades to your elixirs. But combined, it's like lower than a 30% to get them. And then the other 70% are pretty smudge options. And then say you're trying to get reset with the run it down mid strat, which I'll explain later. It's a meager 10% chance to get a reset. So just to lay it out there, the odds that you're facing when you're trying to get reset or something juicy like Sage Burn or random +2, it tends to be pretty bad. Don't try to force a Chaos 6 stack. If you see normal options that look juicier, then take those. Only take Chaos 6 stacks. Let it stack up only if it comes to you naturally. And this is one of the more common mistakes that people made early on when doing elixirs, because we all saw how like you got a +4 or +5 from Sage Burn option, and it seemed to like allow you to reach above 3.5 on elixirs. But if you look at it, random +2 is a gamba in itself. You need it to land on 2 out of the 5 lines that you want it to land on. It's a gamba. Sage Burn is also a gamba. I mean, the grandpa option is at least expected value of 2.5. But if you look at Killmonger, it can give you nothing, as opposed to a 4, of course. But the expected value is 2. And then the grandma option is an expected value of 0.5 because it's even distribution. 0.5, and of course you can get a 5, but it's very gamba what kind of value you get. And in terms of expected value, of course, grandpa is Pog. Bottom line is, it's not juicy to the point where you want to sacrifice decent normal options to get here, to get to this point. Because getting like a +2 from normal options is totally possible. You don't need to get here and sacrifice those other juicy options. And be prepared to be screwed over 70% of the time. Because like some of these just don't give you values at all. And they're very gamba. Order 3 stack options tend to be pretty juicy. So you have things that influence the great success chance. You have things that influence the transmutation chance. And those take up something like 40%. Now the thing is, those are only really valuable if you get them early on in the run. So like around 11 turns, 10 turns. If you get Order 3 stack and get one of those, then you can enjoy the benefits throughout the remainder of the run. So it makes them very juicy. But for these, if you get them late in the run, like right before the ban phase, it's not as juicy. So because these take up 40% of the odds, it's decent enough to try to force an Order 3 stack early on, but don't like feel forced to get an Order 3 stack later on in the run. Same as Chaos 6 stacks. If you see normal advice options that tend to look juicy enough, then go for those. Don't try to force an Order 3 stack, especially because there's this 20% gold cost reduction for remaining turns. This you're not doing elixirs to save gold. You're doing elixirs in order to get value, to get at least a 3.5. So this is a dead line when it comes to elixirs. You have 20% chance of getting screwed over. And you have some very juicy options like getting an extra turn, and chosen line +1/+2 are very pog. Heist line +2 as well. And things like, yeah, transmute, chosen line is a guaranteed plus. And then transmutation becomes 3 if it lands on the choice that you want, although that's a 1% chance of getting. It's very difficult to get that. But say it works, that's better than, yeah, the Sage Burn option in general. And then rerolls. So 20% of options that you get from Order 3 stacks are rerolls. And I kind of value those really highly because rerolls are your insurance when you go into ban phase. Rerolls allow you to avoid situations that would screw you over in ban phase, especially as you try to abuse the extra turn strat during the ban phase, which I'll talk about later. 20% chance to get one of those, and consider those to be your lifeline when it comes to ban phase. And they, if you manage to save them to the very last turn, they could also convert to value in terms of nodes. How do you value the skip one turn options? Skip one turn options tend to be bad in terms of value. Let's say you're trying to aim for one specific line and the skip option says like it's going to go +2 on that line, but you're going to have to skip a turn. Maybe it's you could consider the option in that case if you need that to be at level 5 and you'll take it even if the other line becomes like a +1 or +2. But yeah, generally they tend to be bad. But it's really situational. Bottom line is try to get Order 3 stacks early on in the run, and don't try to force Order 3 stacks too hard as the run progresses, is the tip I can give you. Also, credit goes to Icepeng again. Now, extra turn strat. Now, this is the single most important part of this presentation. The extra turn strat is statistically the most powerful strat when it comes to increasing the values on your nodes, according to Icepeng, who's created the AI Elixir calculator. And it also shows from my own experience. 99 out of 100%, 100 times, you will try to aim for this extra turn strat to finish the Elixir, to get as many nodes as possible. And the way this works is when you get Order 3 stacks during the ban phase, so generally the last 3 turns, if you get Order 3 stacks there, you are presented with 1 out of 3 options. One is transmute 2 lines at once. One is transmute +2. Transmutation becomes +2. And the third one is extra turn. And this extra turn, when you have it at 1 turn remaining, is incredibly valuable because the transmutation is guaranteed to go into the remaining 2 lines. So barring the 3 lines that you've already banned at that point, the nodes are guaranteed to go into the 2 slots left. And you get an extra turn, and all those options there also go into the remaining 2 lines, and then you get an extra transmutation. So this is so powerful that you will always try to aim for this. And the way you do this is whatever you've done up to this point does not matter. Once you hit 4 turns remaining though, you have to stop and think. How do you set it up so that you get Order 1 stack in the next turn? So when you have 3 turns remaining, you need to be at Order 1 stack, and then you need to keep pressing on that order option so that you get 3 stacks at 1 turn remaining. So when you're at 4 turns remaining, stop and think and see the situation. Analyze the situation. If you have an Order 3 stack option presented to you at 4 turns remaining, then it does not matter which option you take. If you take the Order 3 stack option, the next turn, you'll get a 1 stack. If you choose one of the chaos options over here, then the next turn, that option will become Order 1 stack. So when you have Order 3 stacks, it does not matter at 4 turns remaining which option you choose. You select any option, and then you proceed, keep tapping on that in order to get Order 3 stacks at 1 turn remaining. And then, this is also why rerolls are very important, because you could get screwed while you're trying to keep pressing on the order stacks. When you enter ban phase at 3 turns remaining, assuming that you haven't banned any lines beforehand, it's gonna choose one line out of the 5, and say you're aiming for 2 lines out of the 5, it's a 40% chance that it forces you to ban the lines that you want. 40% chance that you'll have to burn a reroll there, and then 25% chance subsequently to have to use another reroll. And then at 2 turns remaining, once you've barred one line, it's a 50-50 whether you have to burn a reroll there, and then a 1/3 chance to have to burn another reroll there. And then at 1 turn remaining, it's extra turn. So you get to choose which option that you want to ban out. But the problem is you have to go through a 1/3 chance to find the extra turn option, because you have 3 possible outcomes at 1 turn remaining: extra turn, +2, or transmute 2 things at once. And so in case you didn't get the extra turn option, you have to reroll. And then it's a 50-50 whether you find the extra turn or not. And so you have to burn a lot of rerolls, potentially, as you try to use this extra turn strat, which is why if you manage to get extra rerolls from order 3 stacks earlier on, then they will prove vital in this phase, right, while you're trying to do this strat. And of course, there are times when you do get screwed over and do not manage to get, the RNG screws you over and forces you to burn too many rerolls, and at some point you run out of rerolls, but the sages try to ban one of the 2 options that you are aiming for. In that case, rip, but it happens. And then say you don't have order 3 stacks, then you need to think. What you need to do is not choose the order stack. So whether this is at order 1 stack or 2 stack, you should not choose this option when you're at 4 turns remaining. You have to switch over to one of the chaos options in order to stack up, starting at order stack 1. If you press the order option in this case, then you will find yourself at order 2 stacks in this case, which means that you will not be able to land on order 3 stacks at 1 turn remaining. So the only case when you need to be very thoughtful what you're doing is when you're at 4 turns remaining and you don't have order 3 stacks. In that case, you need to switch over from the order stack, whether it's at 1 or 2. So yeah, start setting up at 4 turns remaining and be mentally prepared, emotionally prepared to get screwed over and having to burn rerolls. And then yeah, if you've managed to save your rerolls down to the extra turn phase, you can use the rerolls in order to cycle through the options that you're presented with and find something that gives you value there. So like, for instance, random +1 is an option that's available on normal lines, and that is a guaranteed +1 on the 2 lines that you're aiming for. Something else that can be very valuable is the -1 +2 option, which is an expected value of 0.5. And then, of course, if you're lucky, you can get +2 out of it. And that's why this extra turn strat is very important. Make sure you understand how this works. If you don't know how to do this, don't do elixirs, basically. And you can practice with the simulator. But one thing to note with the simulator right now is I've noticed it's bugged in the sense that in the ban phase, or like in general, you're not supposed to be presented with the same option again if you reroll. So at 1 turn remaining, I tried to reroll and I would get presented with the same option. That should not happen. It should be a 50-50 between the 2 remaining choices out of barring the one that's already presented. Now I'll talk about this one too. It's the double extra turn strat. And if you're trying to go for this strat, you're trying to aim for an order 3 stack at 3 turns remaining. So you have to start thinking from 6 turns remaining. And then you stack up order 1 stack at 5 turns remaining, 2 at 4 turns, and then 3 at 3 turns. You find the extra turn, and then you get order 2 stacks at 2 turns remaining, and then order 3 stacks at 1 turn remaining, and then you get another extra turn, and then you get the final extra turn. The problem with this strat is that it's very high risk. There's so much potential of you getting screwed over and having to burn rerolls. First of all, like trying to get to the point where you order 3 stacks, maybe you'll get screwed over by these options. You might have to burn a reroll there, and then you have to land on the extra turn at 3 turns remaining. And then on your way down here too, you have to make sure that you don't ban out, seal the options that you're aiming for. So you'll have to use rerolls there potentially. And then you have to go through the 1/3 probability at 1 turn remaining to aim for that extra turn again there. So like it's way too much potential of getting screwed over, which is why I don't like this strat. But if you were blessed with extra rerolls early on in the run, so say you have like a +2 reroll, maybe you might want to look into this, but I generally will stay away from this strat personally. So like everyone has their own style when it comes to carving elixirs. Some will want to take more risk in order to get more benefits. In this case, it is the case. It is a high risk, high rewards strat. And maybe if you're aiming for a 5-5, this is what you'll want to do. But if you're just aiming for 5-3s all around, I would suggest not to go for this strat too much, at least. It's very risky. And like, yeah, on your way down here, in more cases, your elixir will be dead. And so the way you set this up is you do the same thing as the extra turn strat that I mentioned beforehand, but you have to start at 6 turns remaining. 6 turns remaining. If you don't have order 3 stacks, then you have to switch over from the order stack so that you start at order 1 stack at 5 turns remaining. If you have order 3 stacks at 6 turns remaining, then it doesn't matter which option you pick. And then one thing I could mention is that there's also some very fancy tricks that you can pull off in terms of elixirs. Like if you see down here, you can set it up so that you get chaos 6 stacks using the order 3 stack extra turn strat. You can get chaos 6 stacks, for instance, during the extra turn at the end. And yeah, this allows you to get things like Sage Burn option or random +2 potentially. And then there's this very fancy strat called the 3 sword style, where you try to get extra turn order 3 stacks at 2 turns remaining. And you have 3 options left at that point. And then you aim for that one option that distributes all nodes from a chosen line at random. This is so gamba. There are cases where this has worked and it just guarantees pretty much that you get a 5-5, but it's like almost impossible to get, which is why I won't go into that much further. That is really fancy and it's very high risk for insane return, of course, but generally just try to go for the extra turn strat. We have the run it down mid strat, which is something that you'll want to do early on, perhaps, when you're trying to get your 40 set, when you're trying to snipe for the set bonuses, or like maybe you're trying to aim for boss damage or crit damage on the EPSs. When you're trying to get that one specific line and you're kind of impatient, you want to go through the run it down mid strat. Now, which is basically you just run it down mid. You keep pressing on the first option that you've chosen. You keep pressing until you hit order 3 stacks and 2 chaos 6 stack options. And then you use rerolls from there and try to get... you basically do this in order to snipe for resets. Now, as I've mentioned before, getting a reset on 1 chaos 6 stack option is around like 11% in terms of probability. So assuming that you're using 2 rerolls, the chances of finding a reset using those 2 rerolls is around 50%. And now if you got extra rerolls from this order 3 stacks over here, then it increases the chance that you do land on a reset. But there's been cases where I used 4 rerolls and did not land on a reset. So that basically means that I just wasted gold. Now, every time you aim for a reset with the run it down mid strat, you're basically spending 3,500 gold. Because there's 5 turns during the select phase and 6 turns you have to... 5 turns, right? This one doesn't cost. So 5 turns and 5 turns over here. So 10 turns. Each turn costing at least 350 gold, depending on whether you got free... I forgot what they called it. There's like materials that you need. And you can either get it by grinding chaos stones, or you can get them from wandering merchants. But basically, barring those things out, assuming that you don't spend anything on chaos stones, it's 3,500 gold per reset attempt. Also, like you can reduce your costs from certain options, of course. But anyhow, do this if you're impatient and you don't mind spending this much gold per reset attempt. The costs ramp up. It's very expensive. But yeah, early on, if you really want to get those upgrades really quickly, try to aim for that 40 set really quickly. Or like you're not satisfied with like getting any random common lines. Try to go for this. Just know that this is an option. Now, additional remarks. Elixirs are 50% luck, 50% knowledge, and you did get perhaps you got some knowledge from this short presentation. But yeah, Elixirs are 50% luck, 50% knowledge. Like half of it is about knowing how to navigate through elixirs. It's not like with honing or ability stones where you can just press on anything blindly and just get something out of it. You need to study a lot in order to make the most out of it. So don't do them blind unless you don't care about wasting gold and having to wait longer for your 40 set. Either study for elixirs and like get decent practice with the simulator and whatnot, or ask someone who has done the studying and do it for you. Like elixirs in Korea, when we got it was a really communal experience in the sense that people would try to go ask people who've done the studying to carve elixirs for them, and like people watch together. It was really fun in that sense. The early days of elixirs. But anyways, don't do them if you don't have the knowledge. Another tip I can mention is try to prioritize common lines for the first 3 picks so that you don't end up in a situation where you have too many part-specific lines. Now, one thing to know is that say you have 2 lines and they're both part-specific. One goes on the shoulder and one goes on the pants, for instance. If you apply that to the shoulder, then the pants line will be calculated as 0. So say you got a 5-5 with shoulder and pants, then it's a 5-0. So to avoid being in that situation, one thing that you can do is try to prioritize common lines earlier on. Because say you pick too many part-specific lines in the beginning and later on you're also presented with part-specific lines, then there's a high chance that you will end up with 2 part-specific lines. Whereas if you started out with some common lines and then you end up with part-specific lines, then you'll have a decent balance. And then even if you end up with common lines at the end, you can get something that has 2 common lines. And you'll be able to use that as a rocket launcher. That's what we call it in Korea. That's what enables other parts that are lower than 5-3. Third tip is dismantle failed elixirs and sell them on the market. That allows you to recover most of the gold spent. And like depending on the state of your market earlier on, you might end up even making money out of dismantling failed elixirs. Depends on whether the shards are priced to that point. But yeah, assuming that the market price stabilizes to something around, say, 200 gold, you'll be able to recover like 2/3 of your costs. Although like it depends on whether you got a lot of gold reduction options or you like skipped turns or took extra turns or did a lot of resets. It depends on so many factors. But yeah, you'll be able to recover a lot of gold when you're doing elixirs earlier on. And then if you're like a semi-whale or a whale, you'll want to buy elixir shards from the market and craft 5 per week, and then like try to aim for all the resets that you can get and whatnot. Don't craft elixirs from shards unless you have deep pockets, or unless you're a whale. Don't feel too pressured. It takes like completing elixirs generally is a long race in a sense. And yes, once you do get 40 set, the power-ups that you obtain are pretty insane. But if you FOMO and you try to do more resets and try to buy shards off the market, and you're gonna like put a huge dent. You're gonna end up putting a huge dent in your pockets. Don't feel too pressured. Any questions from chat? Let's see. There's an in-game training thing. They give you a bunch of practice elixirs when the elixir system is unlocked on that character. They give you elixirs to practice with, and those don't cost anything. But yeah, they're limited, and I think they were purple elixirs, but Yeah, memory fails me. And will you add redemption points for Elixir consultations for chat? Indeed, indeed. I will add a point reward system, quirk reward system, so that avid Wineblue viewers will be able to get Elixirs cut by me. How long did it take you to get 3540 set? Generally, it was something around a month to maybe 2. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of variance. If you are really lucky and you know how to navigate through elixirs, it might cost you less than a month. It might. Generally though, it takes people at least a month to complete. For the first weeks, what would be the best options to focus on if presented with them as a DPS? Oh, I mentioned that before. But whether you're a support or DPS, definitely aim for head and glove pieces. And then after that, common lines, so attack, power, weapon attack, main stat, are your prio. And then in terms of part-specific lines, boss damage, crit damage, additional damage, anything out of these 3, try to grab them if you can. When you said 1 month, did you use tradable shards? No, I didn't. I did go for run it down mid resets, but in retrospect, I shouldn't have. Do purple and legendary elixir crafting share the same craft? No. And it's per character, last time I checked. So you can get 5 purple elixirs and 5 legendary elixirs from crafting. And because purple elixirs tend to be so cheap, and the market price, I don't know what it will be for the West. But yeah, for us, it was very cheap. So try to abuse that. It's very affordable to craft purple elixirs in order to snipe for options that you may need, like head and glove set, primarily. On a 1620 character, would it be better to focus on everything but head gloves for legendary elixirs and then purchasing purple elixirs to snipe head glove, assuming that you can afford it? Yeah. That's a decent strat. I mean, of course, on legendary elixirs, if you're presented with set options, by all means, take it. By all means. And try to get something like preferably a 5-2 at least. You will run into the situation where you'll have everything done, but you need that one particular set option. That's what happens for like most people, and that what's delays the completion of the 40 set for most. And yes, in that case, try to go for purple elixirs so that you can shuffle through more hands to try to snipe it and get at least something like a 4-2 at least on purple elixir, so you can offset it with a 5-5 on legendary elixirs. Is that common DPS option in orders? No. What attack power is best, slightly better than the other 2, and then main stat and weapon attack are pretty much the same, but main stat generally has a bit more emphasis on DPSs. Oh, I don't think I mentioned this, but on supports, it's best if you can find balance between the weapon attack and main stat. It's like half and half. It's because supports generally go for a balanced state of honing, so they won't like hyper focus on weapon level generally, and that's why like it's efficient if you try to like don't be lopsided. But like in the end, it doesn't matter because it's not like you can pick and choose unless you have like very deep pockets. So like take whatever you can get. Anyways, I think that's all for Elixir talk for the YouTube video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll probably do Elixir carving, and maybe I'll upload it to YouTube. And if I think of anything else I can provide in terms of tips, maybe I'll make a second video. But thank you. Signing out.